Welcome back to Night Shift Nerdcore, your late-night DIY dive into heavy riffs, tabletop rabbit holes, and the weird corners of fandom. I am Oliver Hart.
And I am Claire Brooks. Tonight for episode 2, we are jumping into 30 years of trading card evolution, raw punk studio ethos, and heavy metal comebacks. But before we get into the heavy music, Oliver, what is that in your hand? Wait, look at this. You still have that little corner of the card sticking out of your notebook, don't you? Is that what I think it is?
It is. I actually brought it into the studio today because I was looking through some old boxes over the weekend, and I found this beaten-up binder from late 1999.
1999. Wow. So that's what? Authentic first edition playground grime on the corners?
Absolutely. Complete with grass stains from playing on the schoolyard bench. But it's funny because I was thinking about how back then, you buy a pack at the corner shop for £3, $4. You rip it open, you smell that fresh ink, and you trade it for a squished juice box. Fast forward to right now, September 16, 2026, and the Pokémon Company is dropping this massive set called Pokémon TCG 30th Celebration. And the sheer scale of what they are doing with this launch is it's completely unprecedented.
Right. Because historically, whenever a major set comes out, Japan gets it first, or North America gets a staggered release weeks later. But this time, September 16, 2026, it is dropping simultaneously worldwide. Everyone, every single region gets access at the exact same second.
Exact same second. No regional lag, no 6-month delay where Western players are sitting around analysing the Japanese meta deck lists before the physical cards even land on shelves. It's a global simultaneous drop. And if you think about the supply chain nightmare of coordinating that across thousands of game stores, big box retailers and digital platforms all at once, it's mind-boggling.
It really is. And then you look at what is actually inside these booster packs, because usually you open a pack, you get, 8 or 9 common cards, a reverse foil if you're lucky, and 1 rare slot, right? But for 30th Celebration, they just threw the entire standard booster pack economy out the window.
Every single card in every single booster pack is a foil card. Every one. Even the basic energy cards.
Wait, even the basic energy? So you pull a basic fire energy or lightning energy and it's full reflective foil?
Full reflective foil, right out of the wrapper. And on top of that, they built in this incredible subset feature. In every single pack you open, you are guaranteed to find a sparky surprise, which is one of 30 different Pikachu cards, each featuring totally unique artwork from different legendary illustrators across the game's history.
30 different Pikachus? That is... Okay, as someone who collected these as a kid, that sounds like absolute chaos for complete set collectors. But they unveiled 3 of them already, right? They showed off illustrations by Okachi Kei, Yu Nishida, and Atsuko Nishida.
They did. Atsuko Nishida, of course, being the original designer who created Pikachu's look back in the 90s. So having her come back to draw a special edition Pikachu alongside contemporary artists like Okacheke and Yu Nishida, it creates this bridge, between the origin story and where the art direction is today.
Speaking of art direction going in wild directions, what is the deal with these futuristic rare cards they announced? Because I saw the previews for Mew and Mewtwo, and they look completely different from anything I've seen on a trading card.
Oh, it's a total departure. They brought in Yoshi Rotten, the famous Japanese graphic designer and multimedia artist, to design these brand new futuristic rare cards featuring Mew and Mewtwo. And instead of the typical anime scene or dynamic action pose, Yoshi Rotten uses these hyper-abstract, evocative visual styles. It looks almost like high art installations, scaled down to a 2.5 by 3.5 inch piece of cardboard.
That is so interesting because it shows how the brand is treating its anniversary. It's not just catering to 7-year-olds trading on the bus anymore. It's acknowledging that a huge portion of their audience is now adults who view these cards through an artistic lens or, frankly, a massive financial lens.
Yeah, the speculative market. That's the part that blows my mind when I contrast today with 1999. Back when I opened that first base set pack, nobody was talking about grading cards, nobody was keeping packs sealed in temperature-controlled safes, or talking about market capitalization. You just wanted the shiny Charizard so you could beat your buddy at the library after school.
Right. And now you have multi-million-dollar auction sales, investors buying fractional shares of vintage boxes, and people live streaming box breaks for tens of thousands of viewers. It turned from this innocent playground currency into a full-blown alternative asset class.
It really did. But what I find fascinating about this 30th celebration set is how the Pokémon Company is trying to serve both worlds at the same time. They're making packs that appeal to the hyper-high-end aesthetic collector with Yoshi Rotten's artwork, while also flooding the market with all foil packs and nostalgic Pikachu cards, so every kid or casual fan opening a pack feels like they hit the jackpot.
It's a clever balancing act, though I do wonder how competitive players feel about all this foil shine, because historically, foil cards can warp in humidity. Can you imagine showing up to a regional tournament with an all-foil deck and the judge tells you your deck is marked because the energy card's curved?
The dreaded foil curve. Every card game player knows the pain of leaving a foil card near an open window and coming back to find it shaped like a Pringles potato chip.
Okay, so speaking of tournament play, this brings up what I think is one of the most interesting design choices in the 30th celebration set. They are reprinting some of the most famous, iconic cards in the history of the entire franchise, right? Like the original 1999 base set Charizard, and Pikachu and Zekrom GX from the Sun and Moon team-up era.
Right, that base set Charizard. I mean, that is the holy grail for anyone who grew up in the late 90s. But the rules around how these reprinted cards can actually be played in official tournaments are very specific.
Yeah, they explicitly stated that these classic reprinted cards, like the base set Charizard and Pikachu and Zekrom GX, will not be legal to play in the standard tournament format. You can only use them in expanded formats or casual kitchen table games that allow the original historical prints.
And that is such a crucial game balance decision, because if you let a card printed in 1999 into today's standard format, or conversely, if you let an insanely powerful tag team card, like Pikachu and Zekrom GX, back into a meta that has shifted toward modern Pokémon EX mechanics, it completely breaks the competitive architecture.
Right, because game balance back in 1999 was based on totally different power scales. 100 damage back then was astronomical. Today, modern cards like Greninja EX or Sylveon EX are slapping down 200 or 300 damage with secondary effects, extra prize card mechanics, and massive health pools.
Exactly. Modern cards like Greninja EX and Sylveon EX, which are also getting stunning brand new illustration prints in 30th Celebration, are built specifically for the current game tempo. The artwork on those modern EX cards is so fluid and intricate compared to the old gold border holos of 25 years ago, but the nostalgic reprints exist purely to satisfy that emotional itch, without wrecking the competitive integrity of modern organized play.
It's funny you mention that emotional itch, because I actually have to confess something. I don't carry a base set Charizard, but I have this heavily creased, completely ruined vintage card that has lived in my wallet behind my driver's license for over 10 years.
Wait, really? What card is it?
It's just a beat-up, non-foil Psyduck from the Jungle set. It has a literal crease right through the middle where I folded it in 5th grade to fit in my pocket. If you took it to a card grader, they would literally grade it a 1 out of 10 and probably laugh at you. Financially, it's worth 0 cents. But to me, you couldn't buy it for $1,000. It's a reminder of a specific summer, trading cards with my brother on the porch.
That is the exact essence of it, isn't it? That tension between financial valuation and emotional value. The speculative market looks at a piece of cardstock and calculates scarcity, population reports, and market trajectory. But for 90% of people who love these games, the value comes from where you were in your life when you held that card in your hand.
Precisely. And that's why reprinting base set Charizard in a special non-legal format inside 30th Celebration works so well. It allows someone who could never afford a $10,000 original card to pull a gorgeous, crisp foil version out of a pack, put it in a binder, and get that exact same rush of nostalgia without having to mortgage their house.
It bridges the gap between the casual fan, who just wants to hold a piece of their childhood, and the hardcore competitive player, who is grinding championship points at regional events using modern EX decks.
And speaking of grinding away and pouring raw energy into something, that balance between high polish and raw, visceral nostalgia isn't just happening in card games. It's happening across the music industry right now in a massive way.
Oh, absolutely. You look at how records are being made today versus how they were made decades ago, and there is this huge pushback happening against modern digital over-refinement. I was looking at a list recently of 11 classic rock and heavy metal albums that were recorded in less than 7 days total. 7 days! From walking into the studio to walking out with a finished album in hand.
Less than a week? That seems almost impossible by today's standards. Today, bands spend 6 months just getting the drum tone right in Pro Tools.
Right. They spend 3 weeks aligning kick drum hits to a digital grid so everything is frame perfect. But when you look at those classic speed sessions, that extreme time pressure forced a kind of raw artistic friction that you simply cannot recreate when you have infinite time and endless digital undo buttons.
It forces you to commit. If you make a tiny mistake on a live take, you either keep it and let it be part of the record's personality, or you retrack the whole song together as a live band. There's no copying and pasting a guitar chorus 4 times.
Exactly. And Chris Shaw, the frontman for the punk band Mimo PST, talked about this exact thing recently when discussing their latest album, Eternal Actors. He was explaining why staying true to his punk roots means actively resisting corporate polish and digital overproduction.
Chris Shaw put it so well. He basically argued that when you polish out every single imperfection, when you quantize every drum beat and pitch correct every vocal line until it's mathematically flawless, you strip away the humanity. You strip away the spirit that made punk and rock music exciting in the first place.
Yes, and in 2026, we are seeing this real resurgence of analog urgency. Bands are deliberately recording live to tape, booking short 3 or 4 day studio sessions and tracking everything in the same room together because they want that natural bleed between instruments. They want the room to sound like an actual room, not a pristine digital vacuum.
So let me play devil's advocate for a second here, because I think about this a lot. Does modern software actually make it harder to finish an album? Because 20 years ago, you had physical tape constraints, right? Tape was expensive, studio time was booked by the hour, so you had to be prepared. Today, you can record a full album on a laptop in your bedroom with infinite tracks for virtually $0.
Well, I think that is the paradox of choice, isn't it? When you have limitless options, when you can tweak a snare drum frequency for 80 hours, or record 50 vocal takes and stitch together individual syllables, you end up paralysed. The constraint of time in the studio was actually a creative engine because it forced quick, instinctual decision-making.
Right. You don't have time to second-guess whether the guitar solo should have 10% more treble. You just play it with grit, print it to tape, and move on to track 5 before the session time runs out at midnight.
Exactly. And when you listen to those classic albums recorded in 6 days, you hear that nervous energy in the performance. You hear a band riding right on the edge of their capability, where everything feels like it might fall apart at any second. But instead, it captured lightning in a bottle.
It's the difference between a live theatrical performance and a heavily edited movie with CGI. Both have their place, but there is a visceral thrill to watching or hearing human beings perform on a high wire without a net.
And that raw, live instinct is precisely what keeps heavy music alive, especially when veteran bands reassemble or completely reinvent themselves after years away.
Speaking of major shifts in alternative music, have you been keeping up with the wild rollout Anberlin has been doing for their upcoming studio album, Currency?
Oh, I have. And talk about a band entering a completely new era. This album, Currency, is cementing their new lineup, with Matty Mullins taking over lead vocal duties full-time, following their previous transition phases.
And they had a little bit of an accidental chaos moment during the rollout, didn't they? They accidentally leaked the upcoming album cover art on Spotify ahead of time.
They did. A rogue image upload on a streaming platform before the official press release went out. But in a weird way, that kind of accidental leak just fueled the online fan base even more. People were screenshotting it, analysing the visuals, and discussing what this new direction under Matty Mullins represents for the band's legacy.
It's huge, because taking over as lead vocalist for an established, beloved band with 20 years of history is one of the hardest jobs in music. You are stepping into a shadow cast by decades of iconic tracks.
It really is. And on the even heavier end of the spectrum, we just got this monumental announcement from the sludge supergroup Down. They announced their first full studio album in 19 years.
19 years! Down 19 years since their last full-length studio project.
19 years. And the wild part about this new Down album is that it features Phil Anselmo doing a vocal duet with none other than King Diamond.
Phil Anselmo and King Diamond on the same track? That is, talk about two completely distinct, legendary vocal styles clashing together in a sludge metal cauldron.
It is going to be completely colossal. You have Anselmo's deep, guttural, southern sludge growl, paired with King Diamond's theatrical, piercing, operatic falsetto over heavy, down-tuned riffage. It sounds like an idea someone cooked up in a dream, but it's actually happening on tape.
That is incredible. But, while some bands are coming back together after decades, others are officially closing massive chapters. Look at Slipknot this past week. They officially confirmed their split with longtime DJ Sid Wilson in a formal statement.
Yes, Sid Wilson, member number 0, a core part of their chaotic live identity for a quarter of a century. Seeing a band as massive as Slipknot navigate these major lineup shifts after so many years, it really highlights how bands at that level operate, almost like sports franchises or enduring brand institutions.
Right. The institution of the band outlasts individual members, but every time a key piece changes, the dynamic on stage shifts slightly. It reminds me of... I saw one of my absolute favorite bands live about 3 years ago, right after they replaced their founding singer.
How was that experience for you as a long-time fan?
Honestly, it was surreal. The new singer was incredibly talented, hit every note perfectly. But watching them perform felt almost like watching a world-class cover band play original songs. You could see the band members on stage looking at each other, trying to relearn their own physical cues, relearning who they were live on stage. It takes time to build that unspoken psychic chemistry that only comes from 10 years in a tour band together.
That physical memory, yeah. You can't just rehearse that in 2 weeks. It has to be forged through hundreds of gigs, bad sound checks, broken equipment, and shared history.
Exactly. But when a band actually manages to pull off a reinvention, like Anne Boleyn stepping into this Maddie Mullins era, or Down reuniting after 19 years with fresh energy, it proves that these musical ecosystems are tough enough to survive almost anything.
And it's not just legacy rock bands finding ways to thrive. The entire landscape of underground, niche music communities is building powerful, self-sustaining models entirely outside the traditional mainstream radar.
Look at what's happening with Flavorfest revealing its 2026 lineup. They just announced that Lecrae and Miles Minnick are headlining, showing how Christian hip-hop and underground rap festivals continue to build massive, dedicated touring ecosystems.
It is an incredible business model to analyse. Flavorfest operates almost entirely outside the traditional major label machine. They don't rely on mainstream pop radio play or massive corporate festival conglomerates to sell out. They have built a direct, hyper-loyal community over decades that turns out consistently, year after year.
Right. Artists like Lecrae and Miles Minnick have built independent followings that pack out venues, move massive physical merch, and drive millions of streams without needing validation from traditional industry gatekeepers. And you see that same grassroots resilience across so many genres right now.
You really do. Look at Acceptance returning to perform at the Vans Warped Tour in Long Beach, or heavy bands like Wage War dropping brutal new tracks like Sweet Dreams, while John Keith follows up his acclaimed record Grow Wings with his new album And Fly.
Wage War's Sweet Dreams is heavy. They posted those cryptic teaser videos on social media for weeks beforehand, driving their fan base crazy, and then dropped a track that is absolutely relentless.
And what links all of these stories together, whether we are talking about John Keith's hip-hop releases, Wage War's heavy metalcore singles, or even physical trading card games, like the Pokémon TCG Live updates and 30th Celebration set, is the power of hyper-specialized subcultural pockets.
That is such a great point. Because 10 or 15 years ago, everybody thought the digital internet age was going to flatten culture into one single, massive, homogenous mainstream blur, where everyone consumed the exact same 5 pop stars and watched the exact same 3 TV shows.
Instead, the exact opposite happened. The internet didn't flatten culture into one giant monolith. It fragmented culture into thousands of deep, hyper-dedicated, vibrant subcultures. You can have a thriving subculture around heavy metalcore, around Christian hip-hop, around vintage card collecting or tabletop gaming, where the fans inside that pocket are deeply invested, highly knowledgeable, and fiercely protective of their community.
And those communities don't need mass market consensus to survive anymore. A band doesn't need 10 million casual listeners who vaguely know one song from a supermarket playlist. They need 10,000 die-hard fans who will buy physical vinyl, show up to Flavorfest or Warped Tour, buy the limited edition t-shirt, and discuss every single lyric on a forum.
It's a complete shift in how culture sustains itself in 2026. The real passion, the real artistic vitality, isn't happening in the top 10 broadcast charts that are designed to be as harmless and generic as possible. It's happening in these dense, passionate subcultural niches where people actually care deeply about the craft, the history, and the physical artifacts.
Whether that artifact is an all-foil Mew card illustrated by Yoshi Rotten, a limited red and white spatter vinyl live album from a legendary British metal act, or a creased Psyduck sitting inside a leather wallet for 20 years.
Precisely. It all comes back to genuine connection over mass market noise, every single time.
Well, on that note, I think I'm gonna go inspect my wallet, Psyduck, and make sure it hasn't disintegrated. Good chatting with you.
Yeah, keep that safe. Catch you next time.